The street was silent except for the low hum of rain tapping against car roofs. A little girl, maybe 10, stood barefoot outside a bakery window, her eyes fixed on a single loaf of bread inside. Her clothes clung to her thin frame, soaked through, her small hands trembling as she pressed them against the glass. Behind her, city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red, painting her silhouette like a forgotten painting. Inside the bakery, laughter echoed. Outside, hunger breathed. She whispered to herself, "Just one bite, please." Her voice cracked like paper torn too many times. From across the street, a man in a wheelchair watched, silent, expression unreadable. His suit was tailored, his watch gleamed faintly beneath the street lamp. To the world, he was wealth carved in silver and sorrow. To her, he was just another person who wouldn't look twice. But he did. "Hey." His voice was soft, hesitant, like it hadn't spoken to a child in years. "You hungry?" She turned, startled. Her eyes, wide and brown, met his. The rain traced paths down her cheeks, blurring where tears began and weather ended. "Don't lie," he said gently. "You've been staring at that bread for 10 minutes. Her lips quivered. "I'm not stealing. I just wanted to see it." Something in his chest tightened, the way an old wound flares when rain starts to fall. "Before we dive deeper, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It amazes me how far a single story can travel. Drop your city. Let's see how wide kindness still spreads." The man's name was Michael Reeves. Once he'd been called a genius, a self-made millionaire who built software empires from a cluttered garage. But 3 years ago, a car accident took everything below his waist. Since then, his mansion had turned into a quiet museum of what used to be photographs of boardrooms, awards collecting dust, a piano no one played anymore. And now, on this rain-soaked night, fate had placed this hungry girl in front of him. "Come with me," he said, glancing toward the cafe next door. She hesitated. "You're not going to call the cops?" He almost laughed. "For what? Being hungry?" Inside the cafe, warmth embraced them. Coffee steam, soft jazz, chatter. The waitress frowned when she saw the girl dripping water onto the floor, but Michael's look silenced her. "Get her whatever she wants," he said, sliding his black card across the counter. The girl's name was Lily. She ordered a grilled cheese and hot chocolate, slowly, as if each word might be too expensive. When the food came, she didn't wait. She devoured it like someone who hadn't seen real food in days, cheeks puffed, eyes closing with every bite. Michael watched in silence, something stirring beneath his calm. That kind of hunger, it wasn't just for food. It was for safety, for being seen. He cleared his throat. "Where are your parents?" She froze mid-bite. "Gone," she said after a pause. "Mom left last winter." "Dad?" She stopped. "He used to play guitar. He didn't push. Some truths are too sharp to touch." Instead, he asked, "How old are you?" 10. "But I'm almost 11. She smiled faintly, proud of that small fact. "11's a good age," he said. "Old enough to see the world, too young to be tired of it." Lily tilted her head. "You talk funny," he chuckled. "I used to talk to too many business people. Guess I forgot how to talk to real ones." She giggled, and for the first time in months, Michael felt something warm move in his chest. When the meal was done, she whispered, "Thank you, mister." Michael nodded. "You're welcome, Lily." He paused. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" Her silence was the only answer he needed. Outside, the rain had eased into a soft drizzle. He looked at her, tiny, fragile, trying to be brave. "Come on," he said, turning his chair toward his car. "Let's get you dry." She blinked. "You're serious?" "Serious as a storm," he said. As they left the cafe, a gust of wind swept through the street, carrying away a napkin, a scent of cocoa, and the quiet promise of something neither of them understood yet. And though he didn't know it, that small act of kindness was about to change everything. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit. Like to prove that compassion still matters. The night swallowed them as they drove away. A man bound by wheels, a child bound by hunger, both about to find the one thing they'd lost without knowing it: hope. The drive was quiet, except for the whisper of rain against the car windows. Lily sat curled in the passenger seat, her small fingers tracing invisible shapes on the fogged glass. Michael glanced at her reflection. Pale cheeks, messy braids, eyes too grown for her age. He remembered those eyes. Not hers exactly, but the kind that looked at him once from a hospital bed. Eyes that had begged him not to give up when his legs stopped listening. "Seat warmer, okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "It's warm. Feels like a hug." Michael swallowed hard. Good. When they reached his home, the automatic gate slid open, revealing a mansion that looked more like a ghost story than a dream. No lights in the upper rooms, no laughter echoing through the halls. Just silence, thick, heavy, and waiting. Lily's jaw dropped. "You live here?" "I exist here," he corrected quietly. "Living's something I'm still figuring out." She followed him inside, her bare feet padding on the marble floor. He handed her a towel, then a soft blanket. "There's a guest room down the hall. But first, let's get you cleaned up." The bathroom steamed up with warm air. She giggled at the bubbles he left by the sink. "You got the fancy kind," she said. He smiled faintly. "Haven't had a reason to use them until now." When she came out, wrapped in an oversized t-shirt, she looked like a little ghost in cotton. "I smell like flowers," she said proudly. Michael laughed, an honest sound he hadn't made in years. "Guess the flowers missed being smelled. Dinner was simple, soup and bread." She dipped her bread into the bowl, looking around the kitchen filled with silent stainless steel. "Don't you get lonely?" "All the time," he said. "You get used to the noise of your own thoughts." "Then maybe I'll talk a lot," she said with a grin. "So you don't have to hear them." He looked at her. Really looked. And something cracked open inside. It wasn't pity. It was remembrance. The version of him who once believed the world could still be good. That night, when she finally fell asleep on the couch, he stayed awake, staring at the quiet hum of the fireplace. The shadows danced on the walls, forming memories he thought he'd buried. The crash, the fire, the sirens. The doctor's words, "You'll never walk again." But now, there was something different in the silence. A heartbeat that wasn't his. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. The next morning, sunlight sliced through the blinds, painting gold lines across the room. Lily yawned and stretched like a cat, blinking at the giant chandelier above her. "Morning," Michael said, rolling into the kitchen. "Hungry again?" "Always," she said. He poured her cereal, the kind with colorful loops. She gasped. "You got rainbows in boxes?" He laughed. "Guess I do." They ate together, him sipping coffee, her crunching joyfully. It felt domestic, foreign, healing. When she finished, she hopped down from the stool. "Thank you for not kicking me out." "Thank you for not running away," he said gently. She tilted her head. "Why would I run? You gave me food." He almost smiled, but the words hurt more than they healed. Because in her mind, food equaled safety, kindness, love, all the things no child should have to earn. That day, Michael called his assistant to cancel meetings. He couldn't explain why, only that something more important had found him. He took Lily to the garden. The autumn air was cool, leaves crunching beneath her feet. "You got a whole jungle," she said. "It used to be a garden," he murmured. "Now it's just surviving." "Maybe it just needs someone to care again," she said, crouching to pull a weed. "See? Easy," he smiled softly. "Maybe you're right." For the first time in 3 years, Michael wheeled himself onto the grass, the uneven ground he'd avoided since his injury. Lily ran ahead, chasing butterflies, her laughter echoing like wind chimes. He watched her and thought, maybe this is what hope sounds like. But fate never gives without testing the gift first. That night, as Lily brushed her teeth, Michael received a call from his lawyer. The voice on the line was cautious, apologetic. "Mr. Reeves, your accounts? There's been unauthorized activity. Someone's been draining from your trust fund." "We're still tracking who?" Michael's chest tightened. "How much?" "Enough to matter." He hung up, mind spinning. The timing, the coincidence, it all felt wrong. He looked toward the hallway where Lily's giggle echoed faintly. Could she be connected? No, impossible. But the thought lodged in his chest like a splinter. Outside, thunder rolled again. The same rain that had brought her here was coming back, and with it, a storm neither of them saw coming. He wheeled closer to her door and whispered under his breath, "Please." "Don't be what I fear you might be. But sometimes, even miracles arrive wearing masks. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight." That night, Michael didn't sleep. The clock's second hand ticked like a slow heartbeat in the quiet house. Outside, rain slid down the windows in silver ribbons. Inside, his mind played war. Logic versus trust, fear versus faith. He sat in his study, staring at the laptop screen, the numbers glowing like ghosts. His lawyer's words echoed in his head. Unauthorized activity. Still tracking. He wanted to believe Lily was innocent. He needed to. But the world had taught him that kindness often came with a price tag. The sound of soft footsteps broke his thoughts. Lily stood at the doorway, rubbing her eyes, a blanket dragging behind her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "Thunder's too loud," he smiled faintly. "You're safe here, kid. Can I stay with you for a bit?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." She climbed onto the couch near his chair, curling up like a kitten. Her head rested on her arm, and within minutes, she was asleep again. Soft breaths, small sighs. Michael watched her, the glow of the desk lamp brushing her face. Could a child like that really deceive him? Or was life just cruel enough to make him doubt the only light left in it? His phone buzzed again. A new email, security alert, transaction traced. Location, local grocery store. Time 8:22 p.m., that was when he'd been in the cafe. His eyes widened. He clicked open the attached photo, blurry CCTV still. A small figure, hooded, handing a card to a cashier. His card. His breath caught. The height, the build, it could be her. He looked toward the couch. Lily shifted in her sleep, mumbling something about Mom. For a long minute, Michael sat frozen. Then he shut the laptop and wheeled closer. He tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Please," he whispered, "don't let this world turn you into what it did to me." The next morning, he confronted the truth, or tried to. "Lily," he said over breakfast, "where were you before we met that night?" She hesitated, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Around, shelters mostly. Did you ever find a card? Like a credit card?" Her eyes darted to his for half a second, just long enough for the silence to say too much. "Maybe," she said softly. "Why?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Because someone used mine." That night, she froze. Then, quietly, "I didn't mean to steal it. I just found it near the cafe. I thought it was trash. I was hungry." Her voice cracked. "I was going to give it back when I saw you. I swear." He closed his eyes. The world tilted. Betrayal stung, but behind it was something else. Shame. He'd doubted her before he even asked. She stood abruptly, tears welling up. "You think I'm bad, don't you?" "Everyone does." "Lily, I can leave," she said, grabbing her small backpack. "I always do." Her voice was shaking, but her steps were determined. Michael moved toward her, his chair wheels squeaking. "Stop." But she didn't. She ran down the hallway, out the door, into the pouring rain. He shouted after her, but his voice drowned in thunder. Outside, her figure blurred into the storm, a small shadow swallowed by gray. He wheeled to the doorway, the rain splashing across his legs. "Lily!" No answer, only the echo of his guilt. He slumped back, rain mixing with the tears he didn't realize were falling. The house felt emptier than before she came. If that moment hit you hard, leave a... Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't. Hours passed. The rain eased, but the ache didn't. He sat there, still, until dawn crept over the horizon. Then, a knock. Weak, hesitant. He froze. Rolled forward, opened the door. There she was, drenched, shivering, holding something in her hand. "I didn't want to keep it," she whispered, placing the card in his lap. "I was scared, but I don't want to run anymore." He looked at her trembling fingers, her tear-streaked face, and something inside him finally broke open completely. Without a word, he reached out his hand, and for the first time in years, someone took it. Michael's hand trembled as Lily's small, cold fingers touched his. The air between them was heavy, like the moment right before lightning strikes. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the dripping rain from her hair onto the marble floor. Finally, he whispered, "Why'd you come back?" She swallowed hard, voice small. "Because no one ever waited for me before." "But you did?" Her words cracked through his chest like a fissure opening in stone. He wanted to say something wise, something kind, but all that came out was a rough sigh. "Come in," he said. "You'll catch your death out there." She hesitated, then stepped inside. The warm air wrapped around her, and for a second she looked like a child again. Not a survivor, not a runaway, just a little girl who wanted to be forgiven. Michael wheeled closer. "Sit," he said softly. "Let's talk." She sat on the rug, knees pulled up to her chest. He handed her a towel, and she began drying her hair in silence. "I wasn't mad about the money," he said. "I was scared. I've seen people do cruel things for less." Lily looked up. "I wasn't trying to be cruel." "I know." His voice wavered. "But fear makes people see monsters where there aren't any." Her eyes shimmered. "Then why'd you help me?" He thought about it. "Because I was drowning too, just in a different way." The fire crackled between them. Shadows danced across the walls, whispering memories they both wished to forget. After a long silence, Lily whispered, "Do you think I'm bad?" Michael looked at her, his eyes soft but firm. "I think you're hurt. And hurt people sometimes do desperate things. But bad? No." Something shifted in her face. Not relief exactly, but recognition. Like hearing a language she'd forgotten she spoke. She took a shaky breath. "Can I stay?" "Just for a while?" He nodded. "As long as you need." Her small shoulders relaxed, and she smiled. A fragile, hopeful thing that felt like sunrise breaking through fog. "Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did?" Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. The days that followed felt strangely normal. Lily helped around the house, sweeping, feeding the stray cat that lurked near the porch, even learning how to make pancakes. Badly. Michael watched her slowly rebuild her sense of safety. And in return, she helped rebuild his faith in something he thought was long gone: humanity. Sometimes he'd find her sitting by the window, sketching in an old notebook. When he asked what she was drawing, she'd shrug. "Things I wish existed," he smiled. "Like what?" "Like homes that don't lock the doors, or hearts that don't forget how to love." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because every word she said peeled back another layer of the numbness that had become his armor. But healing isn't a straight line. One afternoon, while they were baking cookies, Lily accidentally spilled a glass of water onto his lap. "I'm sorry," she gasped, panicking. He flinched, a reflex from years of people treating him like fragile glass. "It's fine," he said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just water." But she'd seen the brief flicker of pain in his face, and it made her whisper, "Does it hurt? Your legs?" He froze, then shook his head slowly. "Not anymore. The body forgets. The mind doesn't." She set the towel down gently. "You miss walking, don't you?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Every day. I used to run in the mornings, miles without stopping. Now I can't even chase the mailman if he leaves a package at the gate." She smiled shyly. "Then maybe I'll be your legs. You can tell me where to go and I'll run there for you." He blinked, taken aback. "You'd do that?" She nodded. "You saved me. Let me do something too." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the garden. The same garden she'd revived, little by little, day after day. The same way she was reviving him, and in that quiet space, something unspoken passed between them. An understanding that family isn't always born from blood, but from broken pieces finding each other in the dark. He smiled faintly. Deal. That night, as Lily slept on the couch, Michael whispered a prayer he hadn't said in years. Not for wealth, not for healing. Just for her to never lose the light she carried, because sometimes forgiveness doesn't come from being strong. It comes from being human enough to love again. The next morning, sunlight painted the kitchen in warm streaks of gold. Lily was humming as she flipped pancakes, her hair tied messily with a red ribbon. Michael sat by the counter, watching her with quiet amusement. You're getting good at that, he said. She grinned. You're just saying that because you're hungry. Maybe, he said, sipping his coffee. But still, not bad for someone who burned toast 2 days ago. She stuck out her tongue playfully. The sound of laughter filled the room, real, unfiltered laughter. It was the kind of sound the walls hadn't heard in years. After breakfast, Lily wandered into the study while Michael answered a phone call. The room was filled with old photos, younger versions of him at award ceremonies, beside luxury cars, holding a woman with kind eyes. She paused at one picture, tracing the woman's face. Who's she? Lily asked when he entered. Michael's expression softened. Grace, he said quietly. My wife. Where is she? He took a long breath. Gone. She didn't make it after the crash. Lily's eyes widened. The one that hurt your legs? He nodded. She was sitting beside me. The silence that followed was thick. Lily didn't know what to say, so she just walked up to him and hugged him. Her arms barely reached around his shoulders, but it was enough. I'm sorry, she whispered. He smiled faintly, blinking away the sting in his eyes. Don't be. You weren't there. Doesn't matter, she said. It still hurts. That night after she'd gone to bed, Michael sat in the study again. He opened the old wooden drawer he hadn't touched in years, and there it was, a letter from Grace. Her handwriting curved softly across the page. If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. Don't close your heart, Michael. Pain is a door, not a wall. Walk through it. Someone will need you again. And when they do, let them in. He ran his thumb over the paper, tears falling silently onto the ink. Someone will need you again, he whispered. You were right, Grace. She already did. The next morning, he told Lily about Grace, not just her death, but her life. How she used to sing in the kitchen, how she believed every broken thing could bloom again. She sounds like magic, Lily said, her eyes bright. She was, he said softly. And so are you. If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. That evening, as they sat in the garden, Lily looked up at the fading orange sky. Do you think people can see us from heaven? She asked. Michael smiled. If they can, Grace is probably up there yelling at me to water the roses. Lily giggled, her laughter bubbling like sunlight. Then let's make her proud. She jumped up and started watering the plants, splashing half the water on herself. Michael watched, shaking his head. You're more rain than gardener. Hey, she said, rain makes things grow. And she was right. Because day by day, things were growing, in the soil, in the house, and in both their hearts. But fate, as always, had one more test one afternoon. While Lily was out playing with the neighbor's dog, a black SUV pulled up to the gate. A tall woman stepped out, trench coat, tired eyes, holding a clipboard. Mr. Reeves? She asked. Yes. I'm from Child Services. We've been tracking a missing minor named Lily Harper. Does that name sound familiar? His stomach twisted. Yes, he said carefully. She's safe here, the woman nodded. We've been looking for her for 3 months. Her foster placement collapsed. She's not in trouble, but she can't stay here without clearance. Michael's throat tightened. She has nowhere else to go. I'm sorry, the woman said, her tone gentle but firm. The system doesn't work like that. He looked past her. Lily running through the yard, laughing, sunlight in her hair. She looked free, alive, and just like that, fear returned. Not of losing money or health, but of losing her. When Lily came back and saw the woman, she froze. Her face fell. "You found me." Michael turned toward her. "Lily, it's okay." But she was already shaking her head. "No, they always say that. Then they take me away." "Not this time," he said, his voice trembling. "Not if I can help it." The social worker stepped forward. "Sir, please." But he raised his voice, raw and full of pain. "You can't just take her. She belongs somewhere she's loved, not just registered," the woman sighed, eyes softening. "Then prove it, Mr. Reeves. File for guardianship. Can I?" "You can try." And with that, she handed him a form, the thin paper that could decide everything. As she left, Lily clung to him, tears spilling freely. "They're gonna take me, aren't they?" Michael pulled her close. "Not if I have anything to say about it." And for the first time in years, he felt fire in his veins. Purpose, not money, not pity, family. The papers lay on Michael's desk like a challenge from the universe. Guardianship, legal custody. Words he'd never imagined applying to his life. Yet here they were, trembling beneath his fingertips. Lily sat quietly nearby, her knees drawn up to her chest, eyes swollen from crying. Every few seconds, she glanced at him, as if afraid he might change his mind. He looked up and met her gaze. "I'm going to do this," he said firmly. "I don't care what it takes," her lips quivered. "What if they say no?" "Then we try again," he said, his voice steady but his heart breaking. That's what family does. For days, his home turned into a battlefield of paperwork, forms, phone calls, background checks. His assistant, Margaret, came over to help, scanning documents while Lily fetched coffee and sticky notes. "Mr. Reeves," Margaret said one afternoon, setting a pile of forms down, "you know this isn't going to be easy. The system doesn't favor single guardians, especially with your condition." He nodded slowly. "I know, but what's harder? Filling paperwork or letting her go back to sleeping on sidewalks?" Margaret sighed, then smiled faintly. "You've changed, sir." "Maybe I'm finally becoming human again," he murmured. Meanwhile, Lily tried to stay brave, but the fear lingered. At night, she'd tiptoe into his room just to make sure he was still there. "Bad dream?" he'd ask softly. She'd nod, climbing onto the couch beside him. "They always come back," she whispered. "The people who promise to stay." He looked at her and said something he'd never said out loud since Grace died. "I'm not leaving, Lily. Not this time." The days turned into weeks. The garden bloomed brighter, the laughter grew louder, and the house felt alive again. But the final court date loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. On the morning of the hearing, Michael wore his best suit. Lily brushed her hair and pinned a tiny flower to his jacket. "So you look like someone who wins," she said shyly. He smiled. "Then what does that make you?" "The reason you should." Her words stayed with him as they entered the courthouse. The walls were tall and cold, echoing with distant footsteps. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a gentle tone, studied Michael's file carefully. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "you're applying for guardianship over Lily Harper, age 11. You're unmarried, disabled, and live alone. That's unconventional." "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "But so is love." The judge tilted her head. "You understand the responsibility you're taking on?" "I do. She's not just a child. She's hope with a heartbeat." Lily squeezed his hand. The social worker testified next, explaining how Lily had run away from 2 foster homes, how she had no living relatives, how she'd survived on the streets. When asked about Michael, the worker hesitated. "At first I doubted it," she admitted, "but I've visited twice since, and it's not charity. It's care." The judge looked back at Michael. "Why her?" He met her eyes, voice trembling but strong. "Because she reminded me what life feels like. She made me believe I could still stand, even if I can't walk." The courtroom went silent. Even the judge's pen stopped moving. After a long pause, she said softly, "You may both wait outside." Lily clung to his sleeve as they left the room. They sat on a bench in the corridor, her head resting on his arm. What if she says no? She whispered. Then we build our own yes, he replied. Brick by brick, the door finally opened. The judge stepped out, papers in hand. Mr. Reeves, she said, guardianship approved, on a 6-month trial basis. Prove to the state what I already see, that this isn't charity, it's love. Lily gasped, covering her mouth. Does that mean... He smiled through tears. It means you're home. She threw her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. He closed his eyes, the world fading around them. He had lost everything once, but somehow in the wreckage, love had found its way back. If this story has you believing in second chances, type hope. Because sometimes one word is all it takes to remind the world that hearts can heal. The months that followed moved like sunlight through curtains, slow, soft, and full of quiet magic. Lily had made the house her home in every way possible. Her drawings filled the fridge, her laughter filled the halls, and her warmth filled every empty space Grace had left behind. Michael watched her transform, from a trembling child into a bright, unstoppable spark of life. She joined school again, helped the neighbors with groceries, even started planting vegetables in the garden she'd revived. For us, she'd said proudly, so we don't have to buy happiness in cans. He'd laughed then, but he knew she was right. Life was simple. For the first time in years, enough felt like a miracle. But one morning changed everything. Michael woke up earlier than usual. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the air smelled like rain. He wheeled himself toward the porch, where he heard faint humming. A song. Lily sat on the steps, sketchbook in her lap, drawing the sunrise. You're up early, he said. She smiled without turning. Can't waste the pretty light. It's like the sky saying sorry for the night. He rolled closer. You've got a poet's soul. She looked up at him, serious, almost shy. You gave it back to me. The moment hung there, quiet and golden. But then suddenly the world tilted. Michael felt a sharp sting in his chest, pain shooting like lightning. His breath caught. His fingers went numb. Mr. Reeves. Lily's voice cracked. Michael? He couldn't answer. His vision blurred. The wheelchair jolted, the cup of tea he was holding crashing to the ground. Help! Lily screamed, bolting toward the phone. Her tiny hands shook as she dialed 911. Please, he can't breathe. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in, voices firm but calm. Heart arrhythmia, one muttered. We're losing him! Lily held his hand tightly, her tears falling onto his sleeve. Don't you dare leave me too! He tried to speak, but all that came out was a whisper. Grace. Stay with me, she cried. I'm right here! Then darkness. Everything faded. The lights, the sound, the pain. For a moment there was nothing, just peace. When Michael opened his eyes again, he was surrounded by white. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and lilies, her favorite flower. Machines beeped softly beside him. Lily was there, asleep in a chair, her small hand still clutching his. He stared at her for a long time, overwhelmed by the ache of being alive. A nurse entered quietly. You're lucky, sir. Cardiac arrest. She saved your life. Michael blinked. She did? She called, performed CPR till we arrived. Said you taught her to never give up. He looked at Lily again, her cheeks smudged with dried tears. Her little frame curled up like a question mark. Something warm flooded his chest, the kind of warmth that hurt in the best way. When she finally stirred awake, she gasped and ran to his bedside. You're okay? He smiled weakly. Because of you, she sniffled. You scared me. Guess we're even, he said softly. You scared me first when you ran away, remember? She giggled through tears and the sound felt like sunrise. The doctor entered a moment later. You'll need therapy, Mr. Reeves, but here's the thing. We noticed muscle responsiveness in your lower legs. It's rare, but sometimes the body surprises us. Michael frowned. What do you mean? The doctor smiled. With rehabilitation, you might walk again. He froze, disbelief flooding his face. That's not possible. Maybe not before. the doctor said. But something's changed. He looked at Lily, who was grinning ear to ear. Told you, she said. Miracles like people who don't give up. Tears filled his eyes. You're my miracle, she squeezed his hand. No, she whispered. We're each other's. If you believe love still wins, comment Amen. Let's fill this space with hope. Maybe someone scrolling tonight needs to see that miracles still happen. Over the next few months, Michael worked harder than ever. Physical therapy was grueling, sweat, pain, endless repetition. But every step, every tremor of movement, Lily was there cheering louder than anyone else. And the first time he stood, even for a second, she screamed with joy and threw her arms around him. You did it! No, he said softly, trembling with emotion. We did. Spring returned, gentle and green, like the world had pressed restart. The garden outside Michael's house was in full bloom, sunflowers reaching for light, daisies bending in the wind, and a small wooden sign Lily had painted herself. Grace's Garden, where broken things grow. Michael stood by the porch, actually stood, with the help of braces and a cane. Each movement was careful, each step deliberate, but the simple act of feeling the earth beneath his feet was enough to make his throat tighten. Lily clapped from the steps, her face glowing. You did it again! 2 minutes this time! He chuckled, breathing hard. 2 minutes longer than yesterday. She ran over and hugged him, her arms wrapping around his waist. You're walking! Barely, he said with a laugh. But I'll take it. The truth was, every second upright felt like a victory against fate. A whisper to the universe that miracles didn't just visit once. They stayed if you believed hard enough. They celebrated with dinner, pancakes, of course, because in their house, pancakes had become the symbol of every new beginning. As they ate, Lily glanced at him, her tone thoughtful. Do you ever think Grace can see us? He smiled, eyes soft. I hope so. She'd like you. She'd like us, Lily corrected. We're kinda awesome. He laughed, nodding. Yeah, we are. Later that evening, the sky shifted to shades of orange and pink. They sat on the porch swing together, the silence between them full of meaning. Do you miss your old life? She asked quietly. Michael shook his head. No, I thought I missed the money, the meetings, the travel. But that wasn't living. This... He gestured to the garden, to her. This is. She leaned her head against his arm. Then promise me something. What's that? When I grow up and when you walk without that stick, we'll help other kids, ones like me, ones who think no one's coming. He looked at her, his eyes shining. We will, I promise. And in that golden hour light, the world seemed to hold its breath, as if heaven itself was watching two souls who had found each other in the ruins. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like. Not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you. Months later, their lives had changed in ways neither could have dreamed. Michael's rehabilitation continued, slow, steady, miraculous. He could walk short distances now, sometimes without the cane. Every session, Lily was there, cheering like it was the Olympics, and together, they did what they'd promised. They started Grace's house, a small foundation to help homeless and foster children find safety, education, and love. The opening day was bright and loud, balloons, laughter, the smell of fresh paint. The sign read, Grace's House, a home for hearts that still hope. Lily cut the ribbon, her smile wide and brave. This is for everyone who's ever been hungry, for food or love, or someone to stay. Michael stood beside her, tears in his eyes. And for the ones who thought their lives were over, but found a reason to begin again. The crowd clapped. Cameras flashed. But all he could see was her. The little girl who'd once begged for a bite of bread, now feeding hope to hundreds. That night, when everyone had left, they sat in the quiet of the new home. Children's laughter echoed faintly from the rooms upstairs. Lily turned to him. Do you think Grace is proud? He smiled, the answer shining in his eyes. I don't just think... I know. She reached for his hand. I'm glad you didn't give up that night. He looked at her with the kind of love that doesn't need words. I'm glad you knocked on my window. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves. The world kept moving, but for them, time had slowed into something sacred, a quiet miracle stitched together by kindness. And if someone had looked into that house from the street, they wouldn't have seen a paralyzed millionaire or a homeless girl. They would have seen a father and a daughter, proof that even the broken can build something beautiful. Because sometimes, grace doesn't fall from heaven. It arrives on a rainy night, barefoot and hungry, asking for a single bite, and leaves you forever full.